Welcome to tonight's program, Fast Track Your Career. I'm excited to have you here. Just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items. First, we will be recording tonight's session, and I will share a link when it's been posted on our website. Second, we will be doing a Q&A at the end of the evening. So if you have questions for our speaker, please put them in the Q&A, not in the chat, so that we don't miss them. So let me introduce our speaker. I'm really excited to have Jennifer Hepie with us here tonight. Jennifer spent 2 decades working as a senior executive for various global banks, interacting with C-suite management and building teams in a complex and fast-paced environment. From her corporate experience, she developed a passion for coaching and mentoring. Jennifer is the author of Win Your Way Up, the Fast Track Career Strategy for Young Professionals. Jennifer trains leaders and transforms careers, and we are really lucky to have her with us tonight. So Jennifer, welcome.
Hello, thank you, Melissa. I'm glad to be here. Yes.
All right. So I will turn things over to you, and I will see you when we are ready for Q&A.
That sounds great. So let me share my screen and we will take it from there. Okay, I hope you're all able to see those slides. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to talk to you about fast tracking your career. Today is a special day. It's a leap year day. It's February 29th. We're not going to see this year for another 4 years, so you could have been anywhere else doing something else, but you decided that you wanted to take the time, a whole hour, to dedicate to your career. So it shows to me that it's an important topic, and I want to make sure that I make a commitment to you. The same way you committed to this hour, I want to commit to you. So my commitment to you is that for the next hour, I am your BFF, your best friend. I will tell you everything I've learned, at least I'll try to tell everything I learned over 2 decades in corporate America. And I will answer your questions truthfully. So feel free to get engaged, to comment, to post in the Q&A section, and we will make sure to address your questions and concern at the end. All right, a brief review of our agenda. So we'll start with a quick introduction. I think Melissa did a great job introducing me, so it will be a quick introduction. We are going to talk about career roadblocks. So what is preventing people from moving forward in their careers? We will talk about a specific strategy that I developed to help you advance your career, and then practical application of that strategy, as well as Q&A. All right, so this is not really about me, it's about you. So we'll make sure that we don't spend too much time here. But I graduated from UAlbany. I studied business administration, and I graduated in 2005, yay, class of 2005. And from there, I pursued an MBA at NYU and graduated in 2012. I spent 2 decades in corporate America, working specifically in risk and control management. I started as a consultant at Deloitte. I got my job while a senior on campus, and eventually move up the ladder to become an executive director in finance, risk, and control at Morgan Stanley. And right now, I spend some time as talking to different audiences as a speaker, a coach, an author, as well as working on the board, the advisory board for student affairs at SUNY Albany. Okay, now, moving along, we're going to start with a poll. I want to hear from you. So my question to you is, for this poll is, how confident are you about advancing your career? How confident are you? Now, there are a couple of options. Are you staying informed? First option, are you staying informed about what's in your industry? Absolutely. You know the trends, the prospect. You are ready for any change. Number 2, you are somewhat, you are informed about main events, but you could be a little bit more intentional about it. And number 3, up to date, Who has time to keep up with the news? Who has time? Okay, we'll give a few more seconds. All right. Okay. I feel like playing the Jeopardy theme song right now. Okay. All right. I think we have, to some extent, most of you keep up to date with the news. Most of you are somewhat ready. Most of you kind of know what's going on, but you could use some help, be more intentional. And that's what I usually see when it comes to career, to being informed, to knowing what the next steps are. So thank you for being truthful about this. See? So you are right there. And here are some of the issues that young professionals are facing that are preventing them sometimes to move their career forward. And a lot of time there's a difficult transition from college to work life. So a lot of young professionals feel like they've invested a lot of time, energy, money into getting a degree, then they transition into the workforce, and sometimes they lack the tools. Sometimes they lack the structure. So that transition can be difficult. Now, there are others who are ready to face the workforce, but they lack clarity on how to navigate the workplace. So a lot of time you are given a job to do, but you are not given the other tools that you need to be able to connect, to network, to advance. So that has been an issue for young professionals. Another issue is a loss of purpose, passion, and engagement. You came in a company, you felt like you were ready to do your best work, but little by little, just staring at a screen for hours has taken away your purpose, your passion, and you feel disengaged. And another issue that comes a lot of time is unfair compensation and benefits. Now, the great thing when it comes to millennials and Gen Z is that they are vocal about those things. So we've seen some progress in the workplace, but there's still a long way to go. And you will see here, CNBC says that Gen Z and millennial were leading what is called the big quit in 2023 with nearly 70%. So that's a lot of people who were planning to leave their jobs. Now in 2021, about 31% acted on that. 31% left their jobs. So before you give in your resignation and just go do something else, let's see what are the real causes of those issues that young professionals are facing. And there are three main causes that can be identified when it comes to career stagnation. And that's for across the board, whether you're a young professional or someone more seasoned. And number one is to be misaligned. And I'm glad you're thinking, misaligned, what do you mean? It's when there's a disconnection between your core values and your profession. So what you believe in, what is valuable to you versus what you actually do. So to take an extreme example, imagine you are a vegan, and maybe you are. If you are, you probably will connect with this example. Imagine you're a vegan, you believe in animal rights, you believe that, a pig is your pet, you believe in that. And here you are, you graduate, and the job you find is in a slaughterhouse, and you're being asked to kill pigs for a living. It doesn't matter how much you get as a compensation. It doesn't matter how many benefits you are. If you take such a job, at some point or another, you will not be able to progress. You will not be able to continue. You'll feel drained. You'll feel like this is not where I need to be. So to be aligned is very important for you to build a successful career. Now, for people who are misaligned, one thing they need to do is to do an introspection and have short-term plan because it's perfectly okay to be misaligned for a short period of time, but to have a long-term plan to eventually transition into something that is more truthful to who they are. Now, a word of caution. We have to be very careful to make a difference between being misaligned and being burnout. Because sometimes when you are tired, burnout, you will feel like, okay, this is the wrong career for me. I want to be a YouTuber and travel the globe. I do not want to be a lawyer anymore or a corporate or whatever you are doing. But there's a big difference between the two. When you are misaligned, it's something that continues over time where you see that it just is not working, versus burnout where you need to take a step back, take a vacation to, for me, it will be the Fiji Islands or someplace warm, resource yourself, even take a sabbatical and an extended leave, and then come back. So it's very important to make the difference between the two. Another cause of stagnation is being unprepared, not having the skills to perform your role well. Most people, I'm not going to say everybody, but most people want to do a good job. So when they are not prepared, it puts them in a position where they feel stagnant, where they feel inadequate, they want to quit. And the solution is to go to training, coaching, and even changing roles while you are building the skill set that you need. Now, again, another word of caution, there's a difference between being unprepared and having imposter syndrome. The imposter syndrome, usually you are prepared. Sometimes you are even over-prepared, but you are never confident enough to take on certain responsibilities. So that's very different. And for that, it is pretty much to do some confidence building, exercise, coaching, and the like, and not necessarily change your career, because that problem will still be there if you change jobs. Now, the last one is the one that most people are facing, and it's being unintentional. And being unintentional means being passive about your career, not having a plan or the support for advancement. So those are the people who are doing what they want to be doing. Those are the people who do their job actually pretty well. But when it comes to promotion, sometimes they are overlooked. And a lot of us have been in that spot. And this is a lot of time because we are either counting on just performing well, and that's the end of the story, or we think that our career advancement is the responsibility of HR, of our manager, who has to see what we do. And to a certain extent it is, but mainly you have to be intentional about your career. You have to have a plan. You have to have the right people in your corner, and you have to be able to voice what your plans are. Else, this can create stagnancy and drain you and even make you dislike your job. So tonight, I am calling for you to take charge of your career. And again, another word of caution, there's a difference between being unintentional and not valued. So there are some people, not sure here, but some people who are doing jobs sometime that the company does not necessarily value to move forward into leadership roles. So if someone is in that position, it doesn't matter whether they're intentional or not, they would still be stuck. So in that case, it might be to realign, to be in a position where there's growth to be able to move forward. So I hope you are still with me. And some of you might be facing those issues, but I don't want to stick only on the negative. We are here because there is a solution, and that's what I want to share with you. Now, before I share that solution on how to fast track your career, I want to give you a quick story, personal story. When I was graduating from UAlbany, I was interviewing for different positions. And one of the first interview I had, it was a disaster. not because I was not prepared, but because I was not necessarily prepared for the type of questions that were asked. So what happened at the end of the interview? The interviewer looked at me straight in the eyes and said, "I'm sorry, I do not see you work. I cannot picture you work in a big organization. Maybe you should start somewhere small and eventually make your way, but I do not see you." So you can imagine, for me, almost 20 years ago, it was crushing. It was crushing in the sense that I felt like, okay, this is it. I'm not going to have a job. I don't know how to move forward from there. And thank God for good friends. I had great friends at UAlbany. One of them in particular told me, you just need to switch how you interview. You need to say this instead. If you don't have the answer, don't say, I don't know. Answer this way or ask additional questions. So she gave me some tools. Few days later, I had an interview with Deloitte. I went back to that interview with the tools that were given by my friend, and guess what? I was hired the next day. The next day I got a phone call, heard that I was hired. So that specific story taught me that having the right strategy in place, no matter what you do, can make the difference between succeeding and failing. That's one thing it taught me. The other thing it taught me is that you can always fix things. That's number two. So you don't need to internalize everything. And number three, the opinion of one person does not define everything that you are. So it's very important to put things into perspective and have the right strategy. Now, tonight, I want to share a strategy with you that I call the WIN strategy. That's something I developed over time from being in corporate. And WIN is actually an acronym. So W is for work ethic. I is for information, and N is for network. And I have a whole book that explains how the three work together, but I want to give you tonight an overview of each item and how they can contribute to advancing your career. Now, starting with work ethic. So what is work ethic? I think that with this one, I'm preaching to the choir. I am ready to bet that anybody who graduated from UAlbany knows what work ethic is and has work ethic. I have that much faith in my school. But just as a refresher, this is what I have to say. So it's putting some type of value, importance on doing a good job, doing good work. That's what having work ethic is. It's I like what Eric Chester says, is knowing what to do and doing it. There's a difference between not knowing what to do and doing the wrong thing, and actually knowing what to do and not doing it. So knowing what to do and doing it. And let me tell you, work ethic should be part of your personal brand. It should be part of your personal brand. Your personal brand refers to how you present yourself, your skills, your experience. It's what you want to be known for. So a lot of time you have those questions during interviews. Tell me about your strengths and weaknesses. Today we will focus on the strength. When it comes to strength, you want to find adjectives, things that refer to your work ethic. There's not a single corporation on this world who is looking for people with no work ethic. That's something that corporations are looking for. And even if you're working for yourself, having work ethic will help you move forward into your business, into your project, into working with clients. So it's very important that you develop your brand around work ethic. And here are a couple of words that come to mind when we're talking about personal brand and work ethic. There's dedicated, reliable, diligent, and you can come up with a list of your own on how your work ethic is part of your personal brand. Now, I'm going to challenge you, because this is what usually happens with work ethic. When we start a new position, a new role, We are full of strength. We are full of passion. We are the first one in the office. And little by little, our work ethic just goes down. Meanwhile, people are still observing us. We are still in that mode where we want to move forward in the company. So it's important to assess if our work ethic is still intact. So little things that we can do when we evaluate. Am I arriving on time? Am I always the last person to show up for a meeting? Am I prepared when I walk into a room? Even if it's a small briefing, do I have questions ready? Have I read the report before I walked in? Because you want to be able to demonstrate understanding that you are connected, engaged, and that's part of your work ethic when you show up in a room. So W, work ethic. Now, moving on to the next one, information. Information, I would say, is the less interesting part of the strategy, but still as important as work ethic and network. And what it is, we know what information is. And we did this poll earlier where most of you are staying somewhat informed about what is going on in your industry, which is great. So that means that you are not completely disconnected, but I want you to take it one step further in terms of being intentional, because everything we're doing leads to us being intentional about advancing, fast tracking our career. And this is what I want you to do, hopefully, when it comes to using information. The first part is to identify the news sources that you are going to rely on. Newspapers, if people still read newspapers, blogs, podcasts, and company publication. So you want to know what is going on in your industry as well as within your company. Now, the next thing you want to do is to analyze that information, that data that you received. You're reading about different things. You're reading about AI taking on having a greater impact in your industry. You're reading about different things. Are you seeing any trends? Are you being consistent in referring to those sources? It's very important if you want to be able to identify patterns, to see what's going on in one company that might be coming to your company. So just making sure that you analyze the information that you consume. And then finally, you want to prioritize what is relevant to you. Does it have a direct impact on what you are doing or an indirect impact? When your company is talking about nearshoring, offshoring, does it have a direct impact on your department or a long-term impact? So you can prepare for that. So short-term versus long-term, direct versus indirect. So you keep track of those things so that you know and you can prepare and you can act instead of react in case something is going on in your industry. And it's not just for changes. If there are new opportunities that are coming into your company, maybe that's the time when you want to raise your hand for a project. But if you are not connecting, attending the meetings and events, you might miss something important that could help you advance your career. So that's how information comes to play when it comes to career advancement. The next part, network or networking. This is the one, people have mixed feeling about that. Some people love to network because maybe they are, extroverts and like to connect with people. And some people, it's the worst part. But let's kind of redefine networking. Before we instead of looking at networking randomly, you want to see the different people that you need in your corner in order to advance your career. And those people, there are 6 types of people. The first one is the person I call the cheerleader. This is someone who supports you, who knows you, who will motivate you when times are difficult, when you are questioning yourself, the person who brings a positive attitude and who can help you. I call it the voice of motivation. The next person is your coach. This is the person who will help you discover some of your talents, that will help you clarify some of your objectives. And if you are a manager, you've probably seen that more and more companies are pushing you to be a coach. So that means that a coach is very much valuable for all level within an organization. And the coach is the voice of progress. The next person is the link. This is the person who is a connector, who will connect you to another person, the person who will connect you to different opportunities or different people. And if you're a connector, let's connect at the end. I love connectors because one thing that's great about connector, they don't see you as a competition. They see you as someone they can cooperate with, build a community. They usually, once they adhere to your vision and your goals, they're willing to help. And I love that attitude about the links. Now, we are all familiar with your mentor. Your mentor is the person that inspires you. It's kind of a model. It shows you what you can look up for or aspire to, and that's the voice of inspiration. The next person is the sponsor. The sponsor is the person of influence that will speak on your behalf when it comes to promotion, when it comes to having certain project, when it comes to showcasing you. The sponsor is that person. And I'm going to pause right there because if you are a minority and you are on this call, especially it's the last day of Black History Month. So if you're a Black person, usually where minorities and Black in particular struggle is when it comes to mentors and sponsors. So one thing you have to do earlier on in your career is to start working on mentors and sponsors. What I usually see, and it's across the board, but a lot more often with minorities in a company, they rely on their work ethic. There's no question about it. Information, maybe they know, maybe they don't know, I don't know. But when it comes to network, they might have a cheerleader, a link, a coach, but the mentor and sponsor are usually missing. So those are people you really have to start, relationship you will really have to start building. And earlier rather than later in your career. Now, the next person, you do not have to look for that person. That person will find you. That person is the critic. We don't know where they come from. They can be in your team. They can be anywhere, but the critic is the person who asks the hard questions. Now, the critic you want to listen to is the critic that provides you with constructive criticism. The ones that are not constructive, we are not going to spend time on listening to what we might listen, but we're not going to internalize what they're saying. But the one with the constructive criticism are the voice of improvement to help you move forward. All right. It's a lot of information to digest at once, but when you look at this, think about what is missing and start having a plan on how to build those relationships. And here's a quick way that we can look at it. Now, you will see at the middle of the circle, there's you. Now, I know you've heard before, you're not the center of the universe. But tonight, you are the center of your universe. You are in the middle of your network, and around you, you have what is called your core or inner connections. So those are the people who are close to, that you speak to often. They're not, it can be your mom, your best friend, and they know you on a personal level. Usually, your advancement, your progress in your company is not going to come from your core or your inner connections. Not to say that they're not important, but just to say that a lot of time, what is called peripheral or outer connection is a lot of time neglected when your opportunities are going to come out of that circle. So we have to be a lot more intentional about building and maintaining relationship with that outer circle as well. And of course, out of network, people you have no connection with, that's where your link can help you bridge the gap. So what can you do? You can evaluate your current network, who are your core connections. From your core connection, you probably have your cheerleader, you probably have people who support you. You might have even your link out of those core connections. But from your peripheral connection, that's where you're going to have your mentor, your sponsor, and other people who help to build your career. So how do you build those relationships? Again, if you have a link in your sphere, they will be great to make introductions. If you do not have a link, you can, well, that's the time to be brave. For my introverted people, you can still use things like social media, common interest to reach out to people. You can start building email types and start connecting with people. Now, let me say something. A lot of time we reach out to one person. We identify just that one person and we say, this is the person I want as being my mentor, for example. And then we can be disappointed when this person does not reciprocate, does not communicate back. I will say that when it comes to your outer connection, you have to cast a wider net. The people who might help you in your career might not look like you, might not have the same interests as you, but once you connect with them on certain common activities or ideas, they will be willing to be your mentors and sponsors and to help you with your career. So do not just focus on one type of people, but focus on multiple people that you think could help your career. And don't forget, it's not just a one-way street. A lot of time we're like, okay, I don't know what to say to these people. I don't know what to do. But it can be as simple as you have you've read a great article, because guess what? You are keeping in touch with information, and you share that article with that person. Say, I read this great article. I thought you'll be interested, so I'm sharing with you. So it can start with baby steps before it progresses to being a mentor or sponsor type of relationship. And another thing to do is to maintain your relationships. So a lot of time, what we imagine network being, we go to an event, we awkwardly walk with a glass in the hand, shake a few hands, collect some business cards, maybe connect on LinkedIn, maybe not, we don't know, or send one email, and that's the end of it. I think there's a little bit more that needs to go there. By more, I'm not saying that every week you are emailing the person, but you have to find a certain rhythm cycle to reach out. I'll give you an example. I have a former manager I've worked with back in 2012. So it's over 10 years ago that I'm still connected to now. We don't talk all the time, but this person is someone we connected around Thanksgiving. So nothing to do with anything. He loves baseball. I love soccer. We are very different, but Thanksgiving is something we have in common. So every Thanksgiving, it became almost like a tradition where I send him an email and say, hey, happy Thanksgiving. Are you cooking the turkey this year? And from there, he will reply and say, what's going on with you? And we will exchange. And I can tell you that this person has tried to recruit me for many other positions, even though I've worked with him 10 years ago, because we maintain that relationship. So try to find that cycle. It can be monthly, quarterly, or annually, but keep that cycle so you maintain those relationships. All right, moving along. What's next? You've heard about the win. There are different things that you can do. Some of it you've heard of before. In my book, I kind of describe a little bit more how all of them work together. But I want to give you with a practical exercise that you can do starting today that will help you already be on the right track to advance your career. So what's the next step? I'm glad you asked. Step 1 is to take immediate action. A lot of time we hear different things. I know all of you have been through different training programs. Some of it you've heard before, some of it it's a refresher, some of it it's an interesting perspective. But what will make the difference is the action that you take. So the next 24 to 48 hours, I have a small homework for you. And is to first identify, I list 2 reliable sources of information that cover your industry, the economy that you are going to rely on, read or listen to frequently. So that's what I'm going to suggest. Also, I will say that for those of you who are working if you're not working for yourself, you're working in a company, I would say that to go to your company website and stay engaged with what's going on. Sometimes there's a spotlight on a senior manager. There are different things happening. That's your opportunity when you see that spotlight and this person is talking to you about, oh, I love to run, I run 3 miles, and guess what? You run 3 miles too. That's the time to reach out and say, hey, I was really inspired by this article. I love what you are doing. I would love to connect. Do not be shy. Do not be afraid to reach out, to send out that email. Now, the next step, within the next week or 2 weeks, for some of you, it will take a week. From some of you, it'll take a little longer. Take the time to write down your short-term and long-term goals when it comes to your career. It's very important for you to be clear about what you want and when you want it, so you can kind of keep track of what you are doing to help move forward with your career. And then carve out about 30 minutes a week to do an assessment. 30 minutes, you've been sitting in this call for longer than 30 minutes. So for less than the time that you spend on this call, you can invest every week on your career. And if you are not able to do a whole 30 minutes at once, how about you do 10 minutes a day, a little bit, but try to have, at the end of the week, 30 minutes spent on your career. And then have a schedule. Have a schedule, not just for your work activities, but also your personal activities, because we all have a life, and life will creep in and life will take over. So it's very important that you have that time carved out, so you know that, okay, this is time to do social media or what have you, and then this is the time that I have to work on my career. And one thing I will ask you to do, whether you are on the market or not on the market right now, keep your resume up to date. What do I mean by that? There are things you are working on today that you might not remember in 3 years, 4 years when you are actually on the market. But if you have a tab of projects and wins and things that were significant to you, you can use that as a refresher when you are updating your resume, when you are interviewing, when you are asked to provide examples. So it's very important to kind of not just pack it and forget it, but keep a tab of things that you've done and accomplished over time. Now, for those of you who will push a little further, my next challenge in 2 to 4 weeks is to spend the time evaluating your network. And all of this that I'm talking about will fit into those 30 minutes I mentioned earlier. So take the time, evaluate your network. Do I have all 6 connections? I'll say 5, because the critic, again, you don't need to find them, they will find you. So do you have those 5 core connections? Who can help you establish them? So take the time to evaluate your network, identify where you have gaps, who you should remove also from your network, because some people might be counterproductive to your advancement. And then for the rest, you want to spend the time building and maintaining those relationships, Again, I mentioned you can join different professional communities, you can join LinkedIn. So that will help you to build your network. All right. If you are ready, if you are going to take any of those steps in the chat, just put we have deal. So I know we have a deal and that you are committing to doing at least one of those steps going forward. Okay. So quickly before we go into Q&A, I talk about all of this in my book. There's a lot more, so you can refer to it. It's on Amazon. It's called Win Your Way Up. You'll have a lot of information. I talk about conflict resolution. I talk a little bit more about my own story, how I made it to executive director, all of that. And we can connect. There are a couple of you on this call, so by the end of the call, I'm expecting to see some requests on LinkedIn so we can connect. I will have also a newsletter coming soon that will help you also to keep up to date and keep motivated as you build your career. So now I think we are about time. It's about that time. And Melissa, keep me honest, please.
Yes.
Okay,
So
perfect.
I'm happy to help and happy to be back. Yeah, let's hop into Q&A. If you want to close your screen, your presentation rather, folks will be able to see a little bit better. Yeah, there we go.
There we
Terrific.
are.
All right, so we do have a few questions.
Mhm.
And I will start. Someone asked, do you think that cultivating a consistent online presence is important to building your personal brand? You talked about personal brand a little bit earlier. How important is being online?
Actually, it's very important, but you have to be careful about which online presence you are building.
Mm.
So if we are talking about advancing your career and we are talking about professional development, if you have a presence on TikTok, it might help, but not as much, for example, than having a presence on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, for example, on LinkedIn will create an account and never post anything. But if you're looking for an internship, if you're looking for a mentor, this is the place where everybody gathers, everybody who's in that professional sphere. And sometimes it might not be as much as posting articles, but at least when someone in your network is sharing some information, you can jump on it, you can like, comment, so that it shows your presence, your social media presence in LinkedIn.
Gotcha. Okay. Someone asked, do you think that, oh no, sorry. If somebody mentioned, I try to actively seek out challenges at my job, but my boss always seems to want to give these projects to more seasoned staff. How can I deal with that?
So one thing that you can do is, if your boss doesn't necessarily feel like you should lead those projects, well, first, let me backtrack a little bit. Let's see the profile of the people they give those jobs to. Are they indeed more seasoned than you? Are they do they have skill set that you don't have? So there might be something valid to it. So what you might want to do, you don't want to be out of the conversation, but you still want to tag along. So you can tell your boss that, well, I really would like to participate in this project, even in a small way. Even if I'm not leading it, I still want to be part of it. So you are putting your name out there. You are showing that you are willing, even if you're not the lead on the project. So that's how you can show that indeed you have the skill set. And then when the next opportunity comes, don't be afraid to ask again. They will see that you are engaged and you are willing, and eventually they'll want to reward that.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? So you're getting the experience,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
getting your name out there and letting people know
Yes.
that you want to take those extra steps. So,
Absolutely.
all right, great. You know, you talked a little bit about this earlier, but Jane says, I know I should follow up with people I meet at events, but I'm never sure what to say. What exactly am I supposed to follow up with? I remember having that feeling when I first started network. I'm like, okay, I've got that business card, but
Yeah.
what am I supposed to reach out and say to them? And I think for young professionals, that can be really challenging. So what types of things can one follow up about after meeting somebody, say, for the first time?
Right. So, of course, after that awkward, you know, meeting or networking event, you got the
Oh,
card, what to do next. Yes. So once you connect with them on LinkedIn or, via email, initially, I would say within the first 24 to 48 hours, reach out to them saying how it was great meeting them. Ideally, when you've met with them, there's one topic that came up that you can use again when you're reaching out to them. But this is what I will say. If after a month or two, you're like, oh, I don't know what to say to this person, and you can go, and that's where your information comes handy. Look about something that has to do with their industry. Look about something that came in the news and say, hey, I read about this and that made me think about you. I don't know if you got to read this, or are you interested, does it impact you? And share that
right.
with, so that you can kind of keep that conversation going.
Mhm.
Now, I will be in full disclosure. There are some people who are not necessarily interested in maintaining those relationships. If you reach out a couple of times and you have not received a return, maybe that person is too busy or does not want to invest, don't waste your time. But I will say that reach out, try to find a common topic or point to discuss and see how it goes from there.
Great. All right, our last question. How often do you think you should ask for feedback on your work from a supervisor?
Okay, that is a great question, because that already shows that you want to know where you stand, what you've done well, where you can improve. Now, it really depends on the nature of what you are doing. If it's project-based, if it's a project-based work that you are doing, you want to be asking questions midway to see that you are going in the right directions. Do you have any feedback? Is there anything I can do better? And then at the end, you want to still have some feedback. So it's ongoing feedback that you want to tailor around milestones that are linked to your project if you are working on a project. Now, if you're more on a maintenance type of work, or business as usual, as we call it, it becomes a little bit more difficult, because you're thinking, oh, it's the same routine. Still, you can take that that opportunity not just to ask, what am I doing right, or what am I doing wrong, but to ask, what else can I do? What else will support the team? I've mastered this. Do you think that we could do it a different way, or is there something else I can do? Always use those opportunities for growth and development. So it will be tailored around the nature of your work.
Yeah. And I think too, young professionals tend to think, oh, let me get feedback from my boss, but there's also your colleagues. I mean, frequently we're
Absolutely.
working more
Yes.
intimately with our colleagues really than we are with our boss.
Right.
And people frequently won't just sort of give you advice or criticism, but if you ask for it,
Mhm.
they may have really constructive, advice for you. So
Mhm.
I would suggest that too to young professionals. Don't just think that your boss is the only one that you can ask for that type of feedback. You can
Mhm.
look for that, from trusted colleagues, from people that you're working on teams with.
Yes. And Melissa said something key right now: trusted colleagues.
Hmm,
Because if someone sees you as their competition, that might not be the right person to go ask
good point.
feedback to,
Yeah.
you know. And when you are asking feedback, be careful not to use this as a time to disclose all the weaknesses that you've identified. I've seen this, young professionals who come and say, well, I feel like I didn't do this right, and I didn't do this right. No, it's not for you to be pointing out to your shortcomings. If you've identified those, you want to work on them, or
Mhm.
the way you want to phrase it should be different. Do you think that next time I can be more assertive when it comes to this and that? Do you think that I could do this differently? It's not a confessional or mea culpa. So just be careful how you word it.
All right. Well, that wraps up our Q&A questions. Any sort of last piece of advice that you would like to share with our young professionals that are listening today?
Yes. Overall, I will say that sometimes it might sound daunting, it might sound like moving forward it seemed like impossible, but if you start practicing some of the things that I mentioned, even though some of them might sound very intuitive, if you start practicing them, you will see some improvement in your career, in your work, and you see that all of those elements will contribute to move you forward. The last thing that you want to do is not to be involved, is to kind of delegate your advancement to someone else. No, you want to be in charge. You are in charge of your education. You study for the test, you pass the exam, nobody else did it for you. Now that you are in a corporate setting or even working for yourself, just make sure that you are still engaged, involved when it comes to you moving forward in your career. And again, if you want more, you can always grab my book. I talk about those topics. I talk about dealing with conflict. I don't talk about negotiating a salary, so on and so forth. So there's more that you can learn in the book.
All right, terrific. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I hope all of you have a great night. Thanks for joining us and hope to see you at future webinars. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Melissa.